All right. I just want to do a short stream today, kind of go over um the Sugar Hill history and how redlining impacted that neighborhood, which was a neighborhood of affluent black businessmen, entrepreneurs. It was actually home to the first black millionaire in the state of Florida. And we hear a lot about the Black Wall Street in Tulsa and in Oklahoma. Sometimes you'll hear folks speak about Central Avenue in Los Angeles, but you rarely ever hear about all the other Black Wall Streets that were decimated a lot due to desegregation, running highways and freeways and expressways through the neighborhoods, railroads, all sorts of plans and agendas that were set forth by the government through the HOLC, the Homeowners Loan Corporation's residential security maps that redlined all the black areas and put them in a position where they squeezed them out of getting any sort of economic relief through the refinance programs that they structured with the FHA to get relief for those homeowners back in 1933. There was a program for the New Deal from President Franklin Delano Roosevelt, where he led the organization called the Homeowners Loan Corporation, and they deployed examiners. They hired them to go out, partner with mortgage loan officers, brokers. They partnered with realtors. They partnered with appraisers to create what they call residential security maps. And those maps were designed and targeted to redline blacks out of that relief that you would get from the New Deal. Something that was supposed to be a benefit to all homeowners, it ended up not benefiting anyone who was labeled in the hazardous zone. And I do want to bring up the map so you can see it's not just speculation, but it actually is a map here. As you'll see, this was created through the National Housing Act in 1934. It's the redlining map that they created. Franklin Delano Roosevelt, along with the Homeowners Loan Corporation, they created a map legend to let you know who to give that relief to through the refinancing and home refinance to give you relief on your mortgages. So all the areas in green were labeled as best. Area that was labeled as still desirable would be in blue, which you'll see some blue here. Any that was definitely declining, those were the areas where they used the slang term white flight. Those were definitely declining. You'll see that in C. And then in D, you'll see hazardous. That was where they did the redlining. So anyone in the hazard zone, the realtors were instructed to steer any potential home buyers, steer them away from this area, and the mortgage loan officers were instructed more or less not to give any relief, any refinance programs, and they weren't able to buy any homes in these areas. You had to pay cash if you wanted any home in this area. You had to pay cash for it. You weren't getting any mortgages for it, and if you already lived in the area, you weren't getting any relief. In fact, the appraisers would devalue anyone that was in this hazard zone. Now, they said it was hazardous, but as you see, this neighborhood right here, it's called Sugar Hill. This neighborhood was actually home to most of your affluent blacks in Jacksonville, Florida at the time. Like I said, the first black millionaire in the state of Florida actually lived in Sugar Hill. And I do want to bring up his information here because I'm sure some of you may have never even heard of him. And he was the first black millionaire in the state of Florida. So this area was not hazardous. This was actually a very affluent area, home to very prominent blacks in the area. And we're going to dig into it because the research that I pulled up shows that it was all but hazardous. However, today, the only remains of it on 8th Street is you can see the freeway, and then you can see a lot of blight and abandoned buildings from what is left of it. But let's see if I can pull up some of my research. But first, I want to bring up Abraham Lincoln Lewis, the first black millionaire in the state of Florida. Abraham Lincoln Lewis. Now, I'm not sure if any of you all have heard of him, and I'll bring up a couple of documents so you can see what's going on here. But this is Sugar Hill, and there you go, Abraham Lincoln Lewis, right? He's the founder of the Afro Life Insurance Company. He also is the founder of American Beach out there in Fernandina, out there in Nassau County, because at that time, blacks weren't allowed to go to Jacksonville Beach, Atlantic Beach. They were banned from there. And Abraham Lincoln Lewis, a black from Jacksonville, he actually bought up 200 acres to start what's called American Beach. It's still in Nassau County today. It's a beach resort out there. He bought it so blacks could have a place where they could actually have some fun in the sun. And there's a monument out there today. Anyone who is local, definitely go check it out. But here's some of the houses there. Let me see if I can bring up his house, because there were a lot of prominent homes, in that area. And redlining decimated that area. As you see, this was the thumbnail picture. And as you can see, this is him with his family. Let me see if I can get some more pictures of him, because there's not much to discuss. We talk a lot about the Tulsa um, Black Wall Street, but we don't talk about the other Black Wall Streets that are in other counties, other towns, other cities. Because believe it or not, I know you hear a lot of negativity about Black culture, but there was Black Wall Street city to city, especially in the South. There was tons of them, even in Los Angeles. But now what's left of it is remains from the freeways getting built through them. And that's what we're going to be talking about, how real estate was carved out and eliminated and decimated. A lot of these towns that were affluent, and Sugar Hill being one of them. I'm sure a lot of people may or may not have even heard of Wilder Park. And we're going to get into that as well, because it had a very large library, a very large community center, a very large park that a lot of wealthy individuals and your local average Joe could come through. So there was a safe space for blacks at that time, and the homeowners loan corporation maps carved it out to where they could decimate these types of properties. They made it to where these properties they devalued them through the partnership of the appraisers and the realtors. They made sure they devalued everything so it had no worth and no value. I mean, look at some of these pictures. Look at these mansions. This is 8th Street right here, 504 8th Street. Look at this mansion. If you go down 8th Street today, you don't see any of this going on. You don't see any of this going on. Look at these mansions. This was a Black Wall Street in Jacksonville, Florida. You see this Bishop Henry Y. Tooks, AME Church. He also was an investor in the Afro Life Insurance Company that was founded by Abraham Lincoln Lewis, the first black millionaire in the state of Florida. Look at this mansion right here on 8th Street, 582 West 8th Street. This is a mansion right here. You see? It's a mansion. All right, let's look at them. Look at the bishop, prominent black. There's nothing hazardous about these folks. These were millionaires living in this neighborhood. Millionaires back in the 30s. These were millionaires, and their communities were decimated through redlining and the HOLC's residential security maps, through straight up mortgage discrimination based on race, color, and national origin. All right. Look at this. This is Bishop Bishop Tooks' residence. Look at this. This is a mansion. Now, to some of my folks in Jacksonville, this place may look familiar because this is a fraternity house. They turned the bishop's house into a fraternity house for Edward Waters College. Right here. You can still go see it. It's a fraternity house today. You can go check it out. You can ride down the street and see it. Go down where Edward Waters College is if you're familiar with the area. It's a fraternity house now. This was Bishop Took's residence. Now look at it. This is a mansion. Look how big this place is. This was in the Sugar Hill district because this is where affluent blacks lived at the time. This was their response to the Riverview affluent white neighborhoods when they were choking out all the economic opportunities in the black community. They went ahead and did their own. And by them doing their own and us having all these different Black Wall Streets, city to city, state to state, they created those residential security maps to ensure they did something about that. They wanted to stop all the economic growth, especially the real estate growth, which is how you can build your most wealth through real estate, through home ownership. They squeezed that out by creating those red line maps, those discrimination maps, as we're going to call them. All right, look at these houses. This is Dr. William Redmond, doctor in the 30s. You know, I hear a lot of folks say we don't have any culture. Blacks don't have culture. This is culture right here in your face, from established in the 30s and before. You see these homes? See, this is something near and dear to my heart because I've been in the mortgage industry for quite some time now. For quite some time. And look at these houses that were devalued. Devalued. You see this? Another mansion. Look at this big home on North Jefferson Street. This is also in the Sugar Hill district, the Sugar Hill neighborhood, where affluent blacks lived. Affluent. We're going to get into it. Look at some of the houses. I want everybody to see this so you can see palm trees in the front house, in the front yard. You see this mansion right here? This isn't the same house. This is a different house. These are all different houses, different streets. We done went from 8th Street to Jefferson Street. We're going to go to Broad Street. So you can take a look at what was going on in this time frame. There was more than just one Black Wall Street. All right. This is another Black Wall Street right here. They were all over. All right. Don't let anyone tell you that blacks don't have a culture, that we don't have a history. Our history, it was full of abundance, wealth, and affluence. There was a targeted agenda to destroy that. Okay. You see right here, created by the Homeowners Loan Corporation. They created these types of maps in all sorts of cities, and they put hazard zone anywhere where we were actually being affluent and building our own. They made sure they devalued the properties in these areas. That was a targeted agenda from the government. From the government. It wasn't something that coincidentally happened by chance. We went over the Ameris Bank case that was the complaint was filed in 2023. The USA had to bring them to the court for practicing these very practices, or continuing these very practices, in Jacksonville, Florida today. They won't even stop. I mean, you've already, if anybody's been to Jacksonville, you've seen 8th Street, you've seen Moncrief, you've seen Northwest Jacksonville. I mean, this is turned it into what you see today, and they're still at it. They won't stop. They will not stop. So the agenda here, with the constructive point of this, is to point out and bring awareness, so you can know what once was, what is now. Because if you don't understand your history, it is bound to repeat itself. So we're going to make sure we have a good understanding of what's been going on and why it's still going on, and what we can do to constructively counter this. Because if you don't know what's going on, you'll think this is how it's always been. Folks think that Moncrief has always been raggedy. It's always been full of blight. It's always been destitute. It's always been crime ridden. But that's not the case. Back when they had the Sugar Hill neighborhood, all these neighborhoods were affluent. That's why they put a hazard zone around them, because that was the goal, was to make it a hazard zone, which they're doing a good job of continuing on today. All right. So what we want to do, and what I'm going to pull up here next, because I want everybody to take a look. I want you guys to take a look at what Sugar Hill really was, I know I've kind of gone a little bit outside of what I wanted to bring to light, but it was a very prestigious neighborhood. And I'm going to bring up some articles and some more photos so you guys can kind of see what it was. Because I mean, some of what I'm saying doesn't bring it as much justice unless you can actually see it. Because I want to get into the history of it, and I want to go city to city, but I'm going to start off with some that you haven't heard of. And that's what we're doing today when we go over the how redlining impacted Sugar Hill, and that it's a lost neighborhood now. I mean, did you all know that the Jacksonville Expressway, which is now I-95, it ran right through that neighborhood. I mean, is that a coincidence? I know we've heard a lot of stories and people talk about it, but we have to start bringing it up in specifics so you can have constructive outcomes. We got to bring it up in specifics. That this wasn't just something that was, oh man, they were just being racist against all blacks and that's why they never had nothing. No, they had a lot. They had a lot. And real estate was one of them. For Abraham Lincoln Lewis to be able to buy 200 acres of beachfront property way back then, that tells you a lot. Where he had investors in his life insurance company. Investors. The first black millionaire came from the Sugar Hill neighborhood, which they're labeling as a hazard zone. That's not by chance, man. So don't let anyone tell you you don't have a culture, you don't have a history. No, our history's been here. It's been here. And it's so abundant and so affluent that the government went out of their way to create maps to destroy it. See, it wasn't just one Black Wall Street where we just had stuff going on in Oklahoma. That's not the only place that happened. That's not the only place that took place at. And I'm here to bring awareness to show you the different places where we accumulated wealth through real estate, banking, finance, and insurance. We had lawyers, doctors. We're going to dive into Wilder Park also because like everywhere that has a of an affluent urban epicenter, they all had a community center. They all had a park. They all had that. And Sugar Hill was no different. They had one of the largest parks in the South. Community centers that started what's now known today as Bethune-Cookman College. They were doing things from here all the way down to Daytona. Oh yes. Oh yes, we're going to get into it. Oh, we're gonna get into it. You better believe it. You better believe it. So let's pull up some stuff here so everybody can kind of see what it is that I'm talking about and not just making it up and rambling on and things along those lines. Give me a second. Let's pull a couple. Actually, let me look at something here. Let me make sure I'm good to go. Oh, see. So I wanted to make sure I was straight. Okay. So I want to share this with you all real quick. Where's my share screen at? I saw an article that really well, I actually saw a few articles, so I want to go over them with you all here. So look here with Wilder Park. I wanted to discuss that, then we'll get back into Sugar Hill as a whole. But like I said, every urban epicenter had a park. I know I was born in Los Angeles and parks were everything, and they still are today. Every neighborhood had a park or has a park and a community center, and that's where everything goes down. You have your family reunions, barbecues, birthday parties, basketball games, football games, baseball games. Everything goes down at the park. Everything, and that started from way back when, and Sugar Hill was no different. Wilder Park was had community center, had a library, had a hospital. All of these things went down over there. But take a look. So here's a aerial view of Sugar Hill. Let's see if I can blow this up. No, I was trying to blow up the picture. Yeah, let's magnify this. All right, so as you can see, here's an aerial view. Here's the Sugar Hill neighborhood, and this is Wilder Park right here. This is Wilder Park. All right. So this is where that you were able to have your safe zone and have all of your activities and community center events and block parties and you name it. It all went down right here at Wilder Park. Because at the time we had to get blacks had to have a response for segregation. They weren't able to have parties and cookouts and go to the community centers that had a pool and had a rec and activities for the youth. They couldn't go on the other side of the St. Johns River. And if you go town to town, there was some railroad track, some boundary that prevented you from getting over there without being harmed, violently harmed, or arrested if you thought that you were going to go over there and enjoy yourself. So the response to that was Wilder Park, right here in affluent Sugar Hill in Jacksonville County, Jacksonville, Florida, Duval County. Here's a Wilder Park Community Center, as you can see. And let's blow this up a bit. Look at all these children. This was at the Community Rec Center. This was at the Community Rec Center. Look at all the participants here. This is in the 30s. A lot of culture. A lot of culture going on here. This was affluence. You don't see raggediness. You don't see tackiness. Look at them. It's presentable. Presentable. Presentable folks having something to do for their youth. Presentable. This was Black Wall Street in Jacksonville. All right. So let's read a little bit from the article here. The economic prosperity associated with Jacksonville's growing African American community in the 1920s. This is from the 1920s, 100 years ago. Supported new and exciting social opportunities. To serve this rapidly growing population, the Jacksonville Public Library opened the Wilder Park Library at the intersection of 3rd and Lee Street in 1927. That's 98 years ago. They opened a library in Wilder Park, the Wilder Park Library. And I'll pull up some photos of the library so you all can see that. 3 years later, the descendants of Charles B. Wilder donated 30 acres surrounding the library to be used as recreational area for Jacksonville's Black American community. You see that? 30 acres. That's why they put it in the red zone in the residential security maps from the HOLC. That's why they put it in the red zone. They started seeing that blacks were out creating wealth. They were out buying property. They were out doing constructive things for the community. And they went out of their way to create maps, teaming up with the FHA, appraisers, and realtors to devalue these areas and to overall put plants, hazardous plants, waste plants, freeways, railways, all through the community to demolish it. It wasn't that we were destroying our own communities. And that is a stigma that we're going to have to start getting rid of. It's not us destroying our own communities. This was planned back in 1933, before crack ever came, before gang banging and all of that wasn't doing all that stuff that you hear about from the 80s. They already were putting those maps together in the 30s. Okay. So don't let people confuse you by telling you that, oh, blacks destroyed their own community. No, blacks didn't destroy their own communities. We're going to put an end to that myth today. All right. We're going to put an end to that myth today because this is what destroyed the communities. This right here. You see this map? This is what destroyed the communities. This right here. From the National Housing Act of 1934. See, this is in the 30s where they drew red lines to squeeze you out of economic growth. That's why you saw the trickle down in the 80s, because they did this in the 30s. Okay. You need to know your history to know why things happened the way they happened. This happened in the 30s. And I'm not going to let it go. It's the Homeowners Loan Corporation. They partnered up under the leadership of the President Franklin Delano Roosevelt in 1933. And they created these maps to ensure they made them hazard zones. Because we're going to talk about the affluence of Sugar Hill. This wasn't us destroying our own neighborhoods. We're going to dispel that myth here today. There was no destroying of our own neighborhoods. The government created maps to run freeways to destroy the neighborhoods. The destruction was already in play. What you saw in the 80s that took place, that was a mop-up job after they already created these maps. They already put hazardous plants. They already put sewer centers. They already had put freeways through your neighborhoods of affluence. They got rid of them. Blacks didn't create the freeways and run them through their own neighborhoods. That's not what happened. No, there was a targeted agenda through mortgage discrimination, through real estate discrimination, through realtor steering, which is against the law. And they broke the law to decimate communities. They broke the law to decimate Black communities, most importantly. So we're going to dispel that myth that Blacks are tearing up their own stuff. Do you see byproducts of that now? Yes, but this is where you saw the economic growth get squeezed up out of the communities right here. So we're going to talk about it. Let's get back to business. Let's get on back to business. Hold on. Hold on. I didn't want to remove myself. All right. So let's get back to business because there's been a lot of rumors, and with my expertise being in mortgage banking as well as in staffing and recruiting, it is something that's near dear to my heart when it comes to labor, as far as getting jobs, economics, banking and finance, insurance. Those are my areas of expertise. So that's the areas that I choose to speak on. All right. So we're gonna break it down. We're gonna break it all the way down. But let's look at some photos of good old Sugar Hill. All right. So the epicenter of Black Jacksonville's upscale community growth came to Sugar Hill as a part of the city's rebuilding effort following the Great Fire of 1901. When the original campus was destroyed during the fire, the Cookman Institute, Florida's first institution of higher education for African Americans, or as I like to say, Black Americans, relocated its college campus to the outskirts of town near the intersection of Davis and West 8th Streets. In addition, the North Jacksonville Street Railway Town and Improvement Company, owned and operated by several prominent Black members of the community, began a streetcar service to areas. They began streetcar service to the area which was situated on the top of the hill west of Hogan's Creek and Springfield, which is the Sugar Hill area. See, at the time when you weren't when you were squeezed out of economic opportunities, Blacks at that time made a way, which we still do today. And they created the North Jacksonville Street Railway Town and Improvement Company. They created their own railway. All right. Here's an aerial view of Sugar Hill in 1952. You see, they got streets, city grid streets. You see, it's not just a whole bunch of ignorant folks who have no understanding. These were people who had to build this themselves. You see? So don't let anybody tell you otherwise. It's documented. You just got to go search for it. All right. This is the Sugar Hill Black Wall Street in Jacksonville, Florida. This was a Black Wall Street, home to the first Black millionaire in the state of Florida. All right. So this is what it looks like now. You see? I-95. You see all these expressways. Yeah. 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 And as you see in the article, they're talking about it here too. Key figures from Sugar Hill's past include Abraham Lincoln Lewis, Lawton Pratt, Bishop Henry Young Tooks, Joseph Blodgett, and A. Philip Randolph. That's right. Unfortunately, much of the neighborhood was lost due to construction of Interstate 95, which at the time it was Jacksonville Expressway, urban renewal, and the eventual expansion of University of Florida Health, which is Shands. They now call it UF in Jacksonville. With that said, you've probably Heard a lot about the lost neighborhood of Sugar Hill, but we rarely see images of the neighborhood during its heyday. And as you see, they're on that railroad. Looks like that's the community center back there. Or it might be the library, but it looks like, this is the park. They're playing basketball here. So the Jacksonville Belt Railroad was organized in 1886 to connect the Fernandina and Jacksonville Railroad in Springfield to the Florida Atlantic and Gulf Railroad in Jacksonville's terminal area. Would you see the Jacks terminals right now? But they don't tell you the history of it and how blacks were involved in it, or they don't tell you any of that. They just have you thinking that we were just some goofballs that after slavery, we just never got ourselves together. We just never got ourselves together. And we've been struggling ever since. Folks really believe that. Folks really believe that. And it's been pushed on us so much that our own people believe that. And that's not true. That's just fundamentally false. Look at this. Let's see if I can blow this up. This is at the library, the Wilder Park Library. Look at these professional looking, decent looking black folks. Look at them in the library learning. Look at these books. This is way back in the day. Look at them dressed nice. Look at them. Look at these beautiful black women in the library. Would you look at that? But we don't have a culture, right? We don't have anything but just non-constructive things with our non-constructive. Look at them. Got prominent blacks on the wall. I mean, it's nice. There's not a whole bunch of food sitting out and just folks with bonnets on their heads or none of that. Look at it, presentable folks. Presentable. And I'm sure they knew a picture was coming, but it was not like they didn't have these clothes in the closet. It's not like they didn't have this stuff in the closet. Look at this. This was in the Sugar Hill neighborhood. This is Wilder Park Library. Wilder Park Library in Jacksonville, Florida's Black Wall Street. A look inside of Sugar Hill's Wilder Park Library. Wilder Park was the city's largest public space for African American community during segregation. Donated by the descendants of Charles B. Wilder, the 30-acre park included a track, baseball diamond, a diamond ball field, community center, and branch library. Located at the intersection of 3rd and Lee Streets, the Wilder Park Library was the Jacksonville Public Library's first branch. Let me reread that for you all so you can understand. The Wilder Park Library was the Jacksonville Public Library's first branch. The first library branch in Jacksonville, Florida was a black library. The first library in Jacksonville, Florida was Wilder Park. Wilder Park Library. All right. This was in the Sugar Hill neighborhood that was labeled as hazardous by the Homeowners Loan Corporation. This was the hazard zone that they said that the blacks were living in. They said this was the hazard zone. And they squeezed them out and devalued this park and the mansions that were on 8th Street and Jefferson Street. They devalued it with the help of the Homeowners Loan Corporation, with the help of the FHA. They were denied economic growth opportunities through real estate. All right. Look at here. Sugar Hill's youth enjoyed the recreational fields at Isaiah Blocker Junior High School in 1958, 10 years before the assassination of Martin Luther King. You got blacks out here playing baseball. You see that? You see this? It's right here at Wilder Park. Well, actually, it was at Isaiah Blocker Junior High, originally known as Public School Number 135. The African American school opened in 1917 and was one of 12 schools funded by a $1 million bond issued that Duval County voters passed in 1915. See, we've been pushing legislation for our community a long time. Folks act like slavery ended and we just sat around hoping somebody would hand us something. Look at this. This is not hoping someone will hand you something when we created the first, not we, but the affluent blacks at the time created the first library in the hazard zone. The first library in the city of Jacksonville was the Wilder Park Library, a black library. The first library they had. So you mean to tell me that in the hazard zone that was redlined through the racial discrimination maps, that this hazard zone created the first library? What's hazardous about a library? You see, we're going to go into it, and we're going city to city. Make no mistake, we're going city to city. Look at, so this is Abraham Lincoln Lewis, the first black millionaire in the state of Florida. This is his residence. Look at this mansion. This is right on 8th Street. The Abraham Lincoln Lewis residence at 504 8th Street. Lewis was a longtime president of the Afro-American Life Insurance Company, who also founded American Beach in Nassau County. We were just talking about that. He's said to be one of the city's first African-American millionaires. No, he's the first millionaire in the state of Florida, and that's been documented in several cases. Nonetheless, a millionaire way back then. And this is his home. This was his mansion. We showed you Bishop Tooke's mansion. This is Abraham Lincoln Lewis's mansion. All right. Here goes Bishop Tooke's mansion again. Let's see what other pictures they got, because I like going over this. I love going over the history, especially when it pertains to Black history and how folks do like to act as if Blacks had no understanding of banking, finance, like we're just financially illiterate, and that's not the case. All right. So don't let anybody discourage you. Don't let anybody tell you that you didn't know anything or your people didn't know anything. You don't have any culture. We have plenty of culture and influence when it comes to banking and finance. Plenty of it. There was a targeted agenda to take that away from you. So now you're sitting around here thinking you never participated in economic growth. No, it was taken away from you. So there's a big difference, okay? Big difference. All right, so here goes another home in the Sugar Hill, Black Wall Street in Jacksonville. The residence of Dr. and Miss William Redmond, 2028 Davis Street, which is right down, not far from 8th Street. It's in the Sugar Hill area. It's in the Black Wall Street area. Redmond was a business league executive. You see, but they said that this was a hazard zone. Look at this nice home right here. Palm trees in the front. Nice trees, manicured lawn, mansion, 2-story mansion with a chimney. Look at that. Look at that. Look at this. This is connected right here, in case you don't know. All right. But nonetheless, look at this. A very nice manicured lawn. No blight. Roof is intact. Siding is intact. Nice porch. Plants on the front. This is Black Wall Street in Jacksonville, where millionaires live. Business league executive, Dr. Redmond. All right. All right. Dr. Redmond. They said Dr. Redmond's home was in a hazard area. Would you look at this here? Look at this. Manicured lawn again. Brick front way. A brick fence. Look at this. Garage. Look at this. The Gab Union Littlejohn residence at 1424 Jefferson Street. Mr. Littlejohn was a carrier with the United States Postal Service. Miss Littlejohn was the first nurse to be given the TB fellowship at University of Michigan. Notice it doesn't say the first Black nurse, the first nurse. Their son Francis, who's seen right here, is standing in front of their Sugar Hill home in 1942. Look at this. Manicured lawn, nice trees in the front, nice little 2-story mansion from back in the day, chimney. This is Black Wall Street and Sugar Hill that they deemed hazardous. The HOLC said this was a hazard neighborhood. It doesn't look hazardous to me. It looks like it's pretty affluent. Oh yeah, let's get into it. The residence of Mr. and Mrs. Lawton Pratt at 582 West 8th Street. And 8th Street has a notorious reputation these days as being crime ridden. That's why they changed the name of Shands Hospital to UF. And I believe the state took over at one point. And yeah, I mean, they've been doing everything they could to take over this area and wipe away your history of ever knowing that this was an affluent neighborhood with black millionaires that lived in it. Executives, doctors, lawyers, nurses, life insurance business presidents. They have you believing that the whole history of A Street was just blight and crime and ignorant black folks who don't know how to get along. But that's not the history. And don't let anyone tell you that otherwise. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. That's not the history. Let's see if we can blow this up. But anyways, Pratt opened a funeral home in La Villa. That's a neighboring neighborhood to Sugar Hill in 1900, well over 100 years ago, and was the second licensed black mortician in Florida. He opened his own funeral home and look at the mansion he had. Again, manicured lawns. Look at the plants. Look at this. Two-story open porch, wraparound porch. Look at this. A deck on the second floor. You see that? This ain't blight. This isn't a crack house. This is affluence right here. Look at this, and they deemed this as a hazard zone. Look at this neighborhood. Look at this neighborhood. They deemed this neighborhood a hazard zone. They said this was a hazard zone. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? They said this was a hazard zone. Are you kidding me here? Let's go down. All right. This is inside the residence of Dr. and Mrs. Robert Butler at 1544 Jefferson Street. Dr. Butler was a local druggist, and his wife was a prominent teacher and clubwoman. Inside his home, got a piano, fireplace. Look at this nice place. Vases, nice curtains. This is like a hazard zone to you? He's a professional man. He's a professional man. All right. So don't let anyone tell you that there was no history anywhere. And don't let anyone tell you that Black Wall Street was just one place. No, it was all over. The South is full of Black Wall Streets. Los Angeles had Black Wall Street going on. They had them everywhere. New York with the Harlem Renaissance, everywhere had Black epicenters. We didn't just decide to be lazy bums after slavery. That's not what happened. No, there was a targeted agenda because if you know what you know about wealth accumulation, it starts with home ownership, real estate ownership. There was a targeted agenda with the redlining maps, the racial discrimination maps is what I call them. There was a targeted agenda through the homeowner loan corporation, which they banned and barred that corporation. They terminated them due to this. But by the time they had terminated them, the damage had been done. They had devalued all the homes. They devalued everything. We're going to get into it. I just want to go over some of the pictures because I've heard too much banter and chatter about lazy black people. And we're going to dispel those rumors today. All right? This is the culture. Here goes more homes. Hold on. I wanted to just blow this up. Here goes more homes. Let's take a look at it. Let's blow this up. Look at this. Look at all these big homes in this quote unquote hazardous area. Look at these manicured lawns. Look at the manicured lawns. Look at this. This is far away from what 8th Street and Jefferson Street looks like today. Look at this. Power cables up top. This is at a time where segregation was where Jim Crow was going on. Blacks did this themselves. They built their own homes. They built these homes. They may have had construction companies, but these trust and believe. Trust and believe. You know, the white construction companies weren't coming over here building houses for the black folks back then. No, they were too busy building maps and working with the appraisers and the banks to stop this. They couldn't believe that you could come out of slavery and get to doing stuff like this. Don't ever let anybody tell you otherwise. Don't ever let them tell you otherwise. Don't ever let them tell you otherwise. Look at this. Look at this. Look at this house. Look at this house. This is in the Sugar Hill neighborhood, the Black Wall Street of Jacksonville. that they label as hazardous. Look at this. Look hazardous to you? More palm trees. Pretty. This is amazing. Look at this. This is a mansion. Another one. I mean, we just keep looking at more and more mansions. This is affluence. Okay? These are mansions. Don't let them tell you otherwise. These are mansions. Look at this. More 2 and 3 story homes, manicured lawns, roadways. Look at all these plants in the front, manicured trees in the front. Look at this. Black Wall Street in Jacksonville, Florida. For those of you that didn't know, the Sugar Hill District, the Sugar Hill neighborhood, which was the response to the Riverview affluent neighborhood on the other side of the St. Johns River. All right. All right. This is the Sugar Hill neighborhood. These are homes from the Sugar Hill neighborhood. For those of my folks that may have just been coming in, could be a little late. This is the Sugar Hill neighborhood. Okay. All right. The Wilder Park Library. Look at this. This was the library, the first library in Jacksonville. The first public library in Jacksonville was the Wilder Park Library that was in the Sugar Hill Black Wall Street district. All right, with all the affluent black millionaires that the homeowner loan corporation said were hazardous, and they redlined them and choked them out of their economic growth. They devalued the properties. They put it to where you couldn't get a mortgage in this district because it was so affluent. It was so abundant. You couldn't get a mortgage in these areas. This was their public library. This was their public library way back when. All right. That was the librarian. A fine sister. Look at this. The Wilder Park Library and librarian Olga Owens Bradham was a librarian in 1942. Wilder Park was the premier green and recreational space for Black Jacksonville residents during segregation. All right. And here we have here. Take a look here. This was the Brewster Hospital. Look at this. This was the hospital. This was the Black Hospital. See, this was Black Wall Street. Look at it. Nice steps, manicured lawns, palm trees in front of the hospital. Look at the hospital. Beautiful. They devalued and demolished this hospital. I believe it was 92 beds in this hospital, 92 rooms. Look at this. 1, 2, 3. There's 3, maybe 4 floors on this hospital. 3 visible ones. You know, sometimes there's a basement storage entrance, but we can see. Look at it. Nice windows, manicured lawns, clean steps, palm trees in the front, wraparound walkways. This is in the Black Wall Street of Jacksonville, Florida, Duval County. You get more of Sugar Hill. You get more of it. This is over here in Wilder Park. See more of it. And this fine Black American sister here, she's at the A.L. Lewis branch of the Young Women's Christian Association. The insert shows Miss Florence Jones Dixon, the secretary of the YWCA. All right. You see that? You see that? This is from the lost history of Sugar Hill, the Black Wall Street in Jacksonville. See, there was many Black Wall Streets, and we'll be tackling as many as we can. You know, I'm just one person, but we're going to go over how we were squeezed and choked out of economic growth through home ownership. Squeezed and choked out of it. I'll probably be putting together documentary series that'll be a lot more cleaned up than some of these streams. But I want to make sure that it is understood, that this is what blacks are putting together. Not what you see now. Not what you see now. This is what black folks were putting together through what they had. Mansions. You see? Not little shacks, not crack houses. These are mansions through millionaires. You see this? Mansions. Mansions. These are black homes. Mansions. You see this? Mansions, mansions, manicured lawns, community centers, parks. We're going to dispel these rumors here today. We're going to dispel them. We're going to dispel them. We're going to dispel them. All right. Where's my? I want to share another article, and we're gonna go over some more history, some more photos. I mean, it's only right, right? We're talking about the Black history of Sugar Hill, the Black Wall Street of Jacksonville, home to the first Black millionaire in the state of Florida, home of American Beach, the owner of American Beach. Most folks don't even know about American Beach. Oh yeah, we're gonna get into it. We're gonna get into it. We're gonna get into it. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We're gonna get into it. Cause see, a lot of folks don't even understand some of this history. They haven't even heard of it. They haven't even heard of it. They think the only Black Wall Street was in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and I'm here to tell you that's not the case. Matter of fact, if I'm not mistaken, yeah. Here, let me pull this article back up, and then we'll go dive a little bit more into Sugar Hill, and then we'll not well, the whole thing is about Sugar Hill. We'll dive a little bit more into Wilder Park, and then we're gonna get a little more information on Mr. Abraham Lincoln Lewis. We'll talk about Bishop Tooks. We're gonna do our thing. We're gonna do our thing. Okay, we're gonna do our thing. Because what we're not going to do is let people rewrite history. We're not going to let people rewrite history. We're not going to give off this agenda that blacks are financially illiterate. That's all. That's in every group. That's on every social status. You got folks that don't know certain things, but to lump it all in that we're just the buffoons, the illiterates, the lazies. We're not gonna if I have anything to say about it, we're not gonna continue that on. We're not gonna continue that on ever again. We're gonna put a stop to that. All right. Don't let anyone tell you that you only had one town that did that. I've heard people say things like that. And once they took your one town, no, there's not one town. All right. We're not gonna buy into that. We're not gonna buy into that. There was Black Wall Streets everywhere. All right. There were Black Wall Streets everywhere. And right now we're gonna be focusing on Jacksonville. I'll go to other cities. Make no mistake. We're gonna be going city to city. We're gonna be going city to city. But let me pull up this article I want to share. Let me see if I can find it. Um let me see. I think this is it here. No, this isn't it. Um that's not it. That's not the one. That's not really the one. I think I showed you all that one. Hold on, let me make sure I'm not tripping. Yeah, okay. All right. So let's get back to this one because there's a couple points I wanted to touch on. Like it says right here, in every vibrant urban community, you'll find a vibrant public space, and Jacksonville's Sugar Hill was no exception. Today, Metro Jacksonville remembers the city's largest public space for African Americans during the Jim Crow era, Wilder Park. And shout out to Metro Jacksonville for posting this and keeping this so we could have a point of reference, so we can go over there and be able to spread this information. And see, this is what the HOLC, they target this community. You see how big this community was? They targeted this community and made it to where they couldn't get any economic relief after the Great Depression. While all homeowners were struggling, they made sure that this neighborhood was devalued. This one too, and this one. Oh, and them too. But we're gonna talk about where all the affluents were at this time, and we'll go over the other neighborhoods as well. You know, we're not leaving them out. All right. The economic prosperity associated with Jacksonville's growing African American community in the 1920s supported the new and exciting social opportunities. To serve this rapidly growing population, Jacksonville Public Library opened the Wilder Park Library at the intersection of 3rd and Lee Streets in 1927. And as we found out, that was the first public library in the Jacksonville library system. The first one was the one that black people opened up in called Wilder Park Library. 3 years later, the descendants of Charles B. Wilder donated 30 acres surrounding the library to be used as a recreational area for Jacksonville's Black American community. Accessible via Davis Street streetcar line, Wilder Park was the largest public library park in the city for Black Americans. It included a track, a baseball diamond, a diamond ball field, and branch library. Its playground accommodated several thousand spectators at football games. And within a decade of its opening, Wilder Park Branch Library had grown to contain one of the highest volumes of circulations of any of the city's libraries. Not to mention, it was the first branch. These amenities were joined by the opening of Wilder Park's Community Center in 1938. It was located at the intersection of 3rd and Mount Herman Streets. The community center provided a number of recreational and social activities for Sugar Hill, including Saturday night dances sponsored by Mummy's Club. All right, so this is where you had all your fun, right here at the Wilder Park Community Center. All right, as you see, here's a map of it. Let's see if we can blow it up for you all, okay? All right, so this is all the Sugar Hill district. And as you see, this is Wilder Park. It's 30 acres. All right. Shout out to Charles B. Wilder for investing in the community, for a constructive investment in the community. Shout out to him for that. All right. Just north of North Kings Road and West Davis Street. So all my Jacksonville folks should be familiar with this area. I don't believe there's much left of this, but just so you know where it was and where it is. All right, here's the library. All right. The first library in the Jacksonville Public Library branches right here. Wilder Park Library in Black Wall Street of Jacksonville, Florida. All right, here's the entrance of the library. All right, here's the entrance right here. And what do you have here? Look at there. Why would this young man here be in the hazard zone with these folks? Why would he be here? Oh, because this was the first library. So he wanted to get some of that library action too. Yeah. All right. Meet him in the entrance of the library. So this is when y'all gonna start dressing like this again. Fellas too. In them high-waisted slacks. We bringing back the high waters, but get the high-waisted again. But anyways, this is the entrance to the library, Wilder Park Library in the Black Wall Street community known as Sugar Hill. All right, here's a aerial view, another aerial view. All right, another aerial view here. It's in the 30s. All right, this was the zone that was deemed hazardous through the residential security maps, the racial discrimination maps that they use to make sure they can avoid lending and refinance opportunities to blacks in this community. And they said it was because it was a hazardous community, even though upon research we find out this was a Black Wall Street, home to millionaires and mansions. The first library, hospitals were built in this neighborhood. 3-story hospitals with manicured lawns and palm trees in the front, wraparound sidewalks, emergency entrances in the 30s. Wilder Park was replaced by what would become I-95 in 1958. See, this is what I was saying. These communities were destroyed well before there was crack and all of that other jazz that they tell you about to get you to get you to forget about your history. I-95 went through this affluent millionaire home in 1958. It was called the Jacksonville Expressway at the time. All right. Discriminatory destruction. You see? Discriminatory destruction. Shout out to Metro Jacksonville for keeping it real on the article. All right. Jacksonville's grand public space for Black American community would be short lived. Established by the Florida legislature in 1955, the Jacksonville Expressway Authority found a new use for Wilder Park and the vibrant community surrounding it. They found a new use for that affluent community, that Black Wall Street community. They found a new use for it because building economic growth, oh, that's not good enough. So let's see here. Let's read a little bit more. That use would be served as the belly for a new expressway that would facilitate north side automobile movement between Trout and St. John's River. Enamored by a discriminatory practice of Robert Moses, this superhighway would also serve as a dividing line between the highly minority populated Northwest Jacksonville, downtown, and the majority white neighborhoods of North Downtown. Jacksonville Historic Commission Jacksonville Historic Commission records indicate that Wilder Park Community Center was demolished to make way for what would become I-95 in 1958. They destroyed the community center for Black folks, for the freeway, for I-95. All right. The completion of 95 in 1960 put a concrete barrier between the library and neighborhoods to the west, where a major community park had existed in 1930. In 1965, the severed Wilder Park Library branch closed and was replaced by the Myrtle Avenue branch, which still exists today. The old building housing this proud public institution was demolished in 1972 in preparation of failed Hogan's Creek Urban Renewal project today. Today, not much is left of this grand public space or the community that surrounded it. And as you see now, this is where Wilder Park was at. And what do you have here? I-95. You can get off on exit 353D if you want to go catch the Jaguars game. This is where it was at. You want to go catch the Jags game? You got to ride through Wilder Park to get there. This was it. This is what it looked like now. This is what it looks like now. All right. So that you see this? This was a Black community that was destroyed. This wasn't Blacks that built this freeway right here. Okay. So it's not Blacks destroying their own community. All right. This was an agenda. All right. This was an agenda. Okay. There was a super highway put there called the Jacksonville Expressway, which is now called I-95. All right. This is from the discriminatory practices of Robert Moses. Robert Moses destroyed this community, not the Blacks. Okay. We're going to make sure we point the fingers at the right people. It's only right. We're bringing awareness to this. Robert Moses destroyed this community, not the Black folks. Robert Moses destroyed this community. Okay. We'll make sure we're going to start dispelling some of these rumors out here. We're not going to look at the aftermath. We're going to look at the root cause with the HOLC maps. All right. We're going to look at the root cause with the HOLC maps. That's what we're going to do. We're going to look at the HOLC maps where they set up and designed redlining, which is a discrimination map. They set up a discrimination map to ensure that you couldn't get any of that wealth. You couldn't get economic relief when it came to mortgages. They made sure that wasn't going to happen. Okay. So we're going to make sure that we keep it real. I'm not going to be here making up stuff. I'll come with receipts. I'm not going to be making none of this up. We'll be doing another broadcast on American Beach for sure, because I'm big on the history of real estate. I love it, especially as it pertains to affluent black history, which we don't get enough credit as Black folks for establishing and expanding our own communities, all to be targeted and decimated through the help of the government. Like, yeah, we can point the fingers at ourselves. I'm not sitting here saying that we don't do enough damage to ourselves, but we got to be real. When there's targeted agendas where they're creating red line maps to squeeze you out of economic growth, I'm not going to pretend that didn't happen just to point the finger at more black people. There's been enough beating up of blacks as it comes to financial literacy and ownership and wealth accumulation. We're going to start pointing some awareness to the ones who are responsible for this. We're going to start pointing the awareness at the ones really responsible for these actions. Okay. So I want to share another article as we go over the Black Wall Street in Jacksonville called Sugar Hill. All right, let's share another article here. And I want to go over some more pictures and we'll touch a little bit more on Abraham Lincoln Lewis, the Pratts. We'll go over their history a little bit more. All right, so let's see. I think I shared this article with you all already. Not this one. I may have shared some of this, but lost history saving what's left of Sugar Hill. Ain't much left. I mean, what's left is I-95. All right. But this is where Duke Ellington, he even stopped by in good old Sugar Hill. He even stopped by in good old Sugar Hill to get him a good baseball game going on. From the late 1800s until the 1960s, Sugar Hill was the neighborhood where Jacksonville's most prominent Black Americans lived. During the Jim Crow era, the neighborhood was Black Jacksonville's answer to Riverside and Springfield. Okay. Duke Ellington and band members playing baseball while on tour in Jacksonville in 1955. According to the 1956 Negro Travelers Green Book, which some of you all may be familiar with the Negro Travelers book, there was a guide where blacks they followed that guide so they knew where they could and couldn't stop. It was a network builder as well as a way where you knew where your safe spaces were and you knew what to avoid. It was a guidebook, so you knew what to avoid and you knew where your safe spaces were. So when you're traveling, you know what hotels you can go to. That's for colored folks, is what they called blacks at the time. So, a great innovative idea. You know, that was part of our culture. The Negro Travelers Green Book. And I wish I could find the one that my grandmother had because she had one. I wish I could find it. Now I could show y'all. But the Astor Motel was located at 1111 Cleveland Street near Kings Road in Sugar Hill. Advertises being convenient to bus, railway, business, and amusement sections of town. The Astor was one of Jacksonville's finest accommodations for blacks during segregation. And again, a prestigious upscale streetcar suburb, Sugar Hill was located along Hogan's Creek and Springfield Park, just west of Springfield. Primarily developed after the Great Fire of 1901, Sugar Hill was largely a byproduct of the Colored Man's Railroad, officially the North Jacksonville Street Railway Town and Improvement Company. This streetcar line was initially a black owned system connecting Northwest Jacksonville with downtown, primarily a loop utilizing the State Street, Kings Road, Myrtle Avenue, 13th Street, Moncrief Road, and Davis Street. It would fuel residential and commercial development in Durkeeville and Sugar Hill. These were the places that they said was hazardous. The homeowner loan corporation said this was a hazardous place, but this is home to millionaires. This is home to the North Jacksonville Street Railway Town and Improvement Company, where they developed a railway that took them from Sugar Hill to downtown. Streetcar railway. This is transportation development, where blacks were able to actually get in streetcars. We're talking about way back then, and take streetcars all the way downtown. See, we've been doing stuff like this for quite some time now. This isn't new. Everyone else is actually copying us. Okay? Make sure we're aware of that. That they're the copycats, not the other way around. All right. In Sugar Hill, several elaborate residences line streets such as 8th Street, Davis Street, Moncrief Road, and Jefferson Street. See, Moncrief Road was actually a part of affluence as well. It was not just a crime ridden area and it's always been that way. That's not the case. It was actually home to affluent blacks who were squeezed out of that economic growth opportunity through the mortgage security or the residential security maps, where they did not get any economic mortgage relief. And the appraisers teamed up with the banks to devalue the properties in these areas. All right. So while there was no access to the St. Johns River, the neighborhood economically benefited by being home to the George A. Brewster Hospital and a school of nurse and training, the Duval Medical Center, and several industries along the Seaboard Airline Railway corridor that separated it from neighboring Durkeeville. In addition, prior to 1924, Sugar Hill was the home of the Cookman Institute. This institution of higher learning was located at the intersection of Davis and 8th Streets. This is 100 years ago. 100 years ago. In 1923, it merged with the Daytona Educational and Industrial Training School. Today, with an enrollment of 3,400, this institution lives on as Bethune-Cookman University in Daytona Beach. Because, see, they decimated Sugar Hill, so it's in Daytona. But this all started in Jacksonville, okay? The Cookman Institute started in Jacksonville in the 20s, in the Sugar Hill neighborhood, the Black Wall Street of Jacksonville. That's where the Cookman Institute started at, a higher education institution in an area that the HOLC deemed as hazardous. And I'm not going to let my foot off the gas on this, because this was a targeted agenda to squeeze blacks out of economic growth and development through home ownership. Property ownership, commercial property ownership, residential property ownership. They squeezed blacks out of it with residential security maps, where they drew a red line around this neighborhood in particular and said it was a hazardous neighborhood, even though it was home to a big hospital, home to a higher level, higher learning education, home to a nursing training school, home to the first library in Jacksonville's public library systems. I think we went over this picture earlier. Perhaps Sugar Hill was a little too nice for Jim Crow era Jacksonville. In the 1950s, Northwest Jacksonville's most ritzy neighborhood found itself in the path of progress. An expressway needed to be built in the city's urban core, and city leaders viewed this project as perfect opportunity to clear up urban blight. Now, hold on. Wait a minute. They said this is urban blight. See, me being in the mortgage industry, we know what that means. Like abandoned, or as you would say in the street, bandos. Where did we see? Hold on. We're gonna stop sharing this for a second, and we're gonna share this other, because I want to see what they're, where's the blight at. Let's look at this blight that they're talking about here, because I'm a little confused. Actually, I'm a lot confused. Let's take a look at this blight they're talking about, because I don't see it. I don't see it at all. Matter of fact, this is what I see. All right, let's take a peek here. This is what I see. All right. This doesn't look like blight at all. Let's take a look at some of this. All right. Where you see blight at? This is like a nice soda shop bar, clean. Look at him serving people with a tie and jacket. Look at them dressed professional, nice. Look at the owner. Look at the owner. Suit and tie, suited and booted. Hair fried, dyed, and laid to the side. You see this? Oh, hold on. Look at sister back here. Dressed nice. Dressed nice. This is blight? Come on, let's look at some more of this blight they're talking about. Here goes the Afro American Life Insurance Company, owned by the first black millionaire in the state of Florida. Owned by the first black millionaire in the state of Florida. He was the president of the Afro American Life Insurance Company. His name was Abraham Lincoln Lewis. Abraham Lincoln Lewis. He was a Sugar Hill resident, the first millionaire in the state of Florida. All right. We went over his mansion that he had in this blight area they're talking about, that they needed to run freeways through this Black Wall Street because it was blight. This doesn't like blight. This looks like a 3-story commercial property. Doesn't like blight. Look at this mansion. This is the blight that they needed to run that freeway through. You see it? You see this? This beautiful manicured lawn and homes. They said blight. They said bandos. Doesn't like a bando to me. Look at this community center. This is the Wilder Park Library. This is the Wilder Park Library, and there's the librarian. Or no. My mistaken. This is the Christians Women Association Community Center. My apologies. Let me make sure I get my facts correct. Let me retract that. All right, but this is at Wilder Park. All right. This is probably Robert Moses. I had to take a look at him because, yeah. All right. This is Bishop Took's mansion. It doesn't like blight to me. Look at that. You got 2-car garage over there. It's like a 2-story garage. Look at that. Look at that. That's not blight, man. Knock it off. Look at this hospital. It's amazing. Look at this amazing hospital. This hospital's amazing. The Brewster Hospital. Look at this. Palm trees in the front, and they just needed to demolish it for the freeway. Doesn't like blight to me. Somebody help me understand this. All right, it's like a laundromat over here in good old Sugar Hill. See what the prices was. I ain't got the prices advertised. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Take a look at this here. Another mansion. All right. See, this was mortgage discrimination. Drugstores. You see? More drugstores. You see? And I mean prescription stores, not like crack homes or anything like that. It looks like you can also get some bakery, baked goods, Coca-Cola. You know what I'm saying? Like a nice soda shop, drugstore. Everybody in here dressed with suits, suited and booted, serving you. All right. Another mansion where they say this was blight. This is where they say it was blight at. It's like another mansion. Oh, look at these commercial properties. I believe this must have been Mr. Pratt's. I believe it was Mr. Pratt. Lawton. The second licensed mortician in the state of Florida. All right. He had a funeral home that he owned, and he lived in the Sugar Hill neighborhood. I believe his business, though, was in the La Villa neighborhood, which is right next, right 2, maybe 3 streets over. But here it is. This is the blight that they needed to run through. Look at this. Look at this building. This was the blight they needed to destroy to build the freeway there. Look at this. Manicured lawns, nice cars out front. Black folks built this. This was Black Wall Street in the Sugar Hill neighborhood, Jacksonville, Florida, Duval County. You see this? Mansions. But they just ever so needed to run a whole freeway through these mansions. 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 Here's the librarian in the library. You see? Nice cars, clean streets. You see? This was Black Wall Street, the spot. You see this? I didn't see any abandoned buildings. Where's this blight they're speaking of? Is it here? I don't see any abandoned buildings. That's make believe, all right? But once you get enough people to buy into your propaganda, Out of nowhere, folks began to believe that there was abandoned buildings and they had to do away with it because the blacks didn't know what they were doing with their property and they were just destroying it. And they were no, 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 no. Robert Moses destroyed it. All right. We're gonna start dispelling some of these lies. Robert Moses destroyed this community. Okay. Robert Moses destroyed that community. All right. We're gonna start pointing to the real offenders, the root cause of things. Okay. I'm gonna start pointing to the root cause of things. All right. We're not gonna sit here and let people make believe stuff and tell you that we gotta pull ourselves up by the bootstraps. We already did that. We already did that. And every time we do, y'all make sure you get out. When I say y'all, I mean the powers that be, the ones who are responsible, like your Robert Moseses. That's what I mean. See, the black community has done, or the black culture rather, has done a lot to pull themselves up by their own bootstraps. And every time it seems that we get it cracking and we get it going, the jealousy starts. The jealousy starts. And the next thing you know, we got a Robert Moses out here saying they got to do something about it. We got the HOLC saying they got to create maps to ensure that you don't get any sort of economic wealth. They got to create maps. Hold on, let me pull up the map. I did want to show you all Abraham Lincoln Lewis. But let me pull up these maps because I want to make sure it is more than understood that I'm not just making this up. All right. You see this? This was a map created by the Homeowners Loan Corporation. And the National Housing Act referenced it as redlining. This is in 1934. But the Homeowners Loan Corporation created a map where they designated this Black Wall Street right here. This is Black Wall Street. They designated this as a hazard zone. You see, anything in red is hazardous. But this was home to a community park, a library, all sorts of prominent businesses, the Brewer Hospital, baseball fields, youth centers, home to millionaire mansions, all sorts of commercial buildings, the Afro American Life Insurance Company, multi-million dollar entity, home to all sorts of prominent and affluent wealth, and they labeled it as hazardous. What would make them do that? What would make them do that? See, black folks have pulled themselves up by the bootstraps. All right? We've done that. Don't let anyone tell you that they haven't done that, that we haven't done that. This is pulling yourselves up by the bootstraps. You see this? That's pulling yourself up by the bootstraps. Okay? You see that? Look at that. His son got his little Hot Wheels way back in the day. Sugar Hill, Jacksonville, Florida, 1880s to 1960. You see this? Despite the centuries of government subjugation, American blacks have always had homes and estates that rival the elites in the other parts of the country throughout the cities in America. They put Europe, but Europe as well. Make no mistake about it. Yeah, this is a global thing. This is a global thing. It's not just a USA thing. But we'll touch on that on a whole nother day. All right, you see, this is Abraham Lincoln Lewis, okay? Founder of the Afro Life Insurance Company. He also is the founder of America Beach, the resort down there in Nassau County, and Florida's first black millionaire. You see that? And they said that he lived in the hazard zone. Yes. The residence of Mr. and Mrs. Lawton Pratt. Yeah, I had it right earlier. First, the largest Negro funeral home business in the South. He actually did the embalming for Bessie Coleman. That's interesting. That was something I never knew. Okay. All right. Bishop Henry Tooks. You see, this is his mansion. I'm still looking for the blight that they were talking about that Robert Moses said was the reason they needed to run the freeway through it because it was just full of blight and not full of black affluence. Very interesting. I mean, this is mortgage discrimination 101, real estate steering 101. Real estate steering 101. Look at the bishop. Bishop look like he put hands to you, boy. He lay hands on you, boy. Look at these houses, man. So as opposed to blight, what I believe was really going on was a little bit more of this here. You know, I'm gonna keep it real. I'm gonna keep it real. This is what I think was the ultimate goal because you see what's highlighted right here. The intelligent Caucasian race to own a beautiful home. See, they were getting jealous. We got the railways going from Sugar Hill to downtown, the streetcars where you can just hitch a ride if you don't own no car, no horse and buggy, you can hop on the streetcar. It take you from Sugar Hill to downtown, so you can do your downtown shopping and business ventures, and you go and bring that economic wealth you was getting from down. You can bring that on back to Sugar Hill. Okay, see, they wanted to stop that, so they ran freeways through there. So that, but they didn't somehow they didn't want to run them through this area. Somehow they didn't want to run them through this area, through the $1 million suburb, even though there was millionaires living in Sugar Hill. Why didn't they run it through the advertisement real estate areas of the intelligent Caucasian race on the Riverside side of town? How come they didn't run those freeways over there? See, this was a practice agenda. It was researched. It was partnering. It was targeted. All right. As you see the maps here, these are the zoning maps. All right. These are the zoning maps. This is St. John's River. This is St. John's River. They made this very they made this very map and they carved out where they found out all the blacks were living. They found out and they deemed it all hazardous, even though it was millionaires living over here and over here too. Millionaires over here, they didn't like it. It was Black Wall Street. They didn't like that. They didn't like that at all. They wasn't feeling that. They wasn't feeling that at all. You know, when you got Abraham Lincoln Lewis over here being millionaires, you got Lawton Pratt over there, millionaires. They wasn't feeling that. They wasn't feeling that at all. And they created these maps. They created these maps to squeeze you out of economic growth. See, like I told you, man, in order to refinance or get any of these types of programs, if you don't have any value in your home, it can be hard to borrow against the ownership in your home, also known as the equity. Because whenever you're doing a mortgage application, and we'll go over how to complete a mortgage application, but there's four pieces to that puzzle: income, property, assets, and credit. All right. And if you're looking to pull out ownership, which is take equity against the home, your property, your LTV, loan to value ratio, needs to have enough equity to do so. You're going to need more than 20%. You're going to need 30, 40% equity so you can actually pull out and do investments or improvements on your home or buy another home, which is an investment. Say you want to add a pool, say you want to get your kid a car for college. A lot of folks in other communities are able to leverage the equity, which is the ownership in their home. Say your house is worth, say your house, you have a mortgage of 200,000 on it, but it's worth 600,000. See what I mean? You got $400,000 worth of equity to kind of play with. And in Sugar Hill, when they devalued the homes, say you had a home at that time that was worth, or say they had a mortgage on a house at that time for $5,000. Well, they'll say to Sugar Hill, the value of that home is $500. So you don't have any equity. You have no ownership. And they just did that to every home over there. And we'll get more into the building requirements that they did to those folks, the survey requirements that they did to those that live there, the straight up and down mortgage and real estate discrimination that they did to those people there, to where you could only get a house there if you paid cash money. You couldn't get a loan to buy a house in those zones that were deemed hazardous. They devalued all the property. Folks, if they had sold their house, like I said, say you bought a house at that time, 5,000 was a lot. Say you bought a $10,000 house, but the appraisers teamed up with the HOLC and said that house is only worth $800. If you sell it, you still owe the $10,000 on the house. See, that's how you squeeze the economic wealth and growth out of the communities. That's how that was done. It wasn't blacks tearing up their own community. No, it was that stuff being done. That's what got done. Don't ever let anybody tell you otherwise. Don't let folks tell you, oh man, black folks were just out there tearing up their own community. No, you saw the mansions. You saw the Black Wall Street in Jacksonville. You saw that. That was real. You saw the HOLC maps that I presented to you, the redlining and racial discrimination maps that the Homeowners Loan Corporation, headed by Franklin Delano Roosevelt, created in 1933. You saw those maps. I showed you those maps. That was designated to run freeways through. That was designated to put hazardous waste plants in those areas, hazardous oil refineries and gas plants. That's what they did with that. With that, discriminatory. That's what they did with that neighborhood. It was a Black Wall Street. In Tulsa, they dropped bombs on them, dynamite bombs. In Jacksonville, they ran freeways through them, demolished the hospital, the Brewer Hospital. They demolished it. The institution of nurse training school, demolished it. The Wilder Park Library, demolished it. The first library in Jacksonville, they demolished it. They demolished the hospital and then made a copycat hospital and called it Shands. I think it started off as Memorial, but they demolished it. All sorts of real estate discrimination. They demolished it. So when someone says that blacks need to pull themselves up by the bootstraps, you tell them we already did that. We already did that. All right. You tell them about Sugar Hill, which we just went over. You refer them to this video. You share it to them and you show them all the wealth and affluence and abundance, mansions. How else do you pull yourself up by the boot? They ran. Robert Moses said it was most important to run a freeway, the Jacksonville Expressway, through the black folks had streetcars on railways taking people back in the 30s and 20s, taking folks from Sugar Hill to downtown. You could hop on a streetcar, a railway streetcar, and it was riding you downtown. So don't you let anyone tell you those falsehoods about not pulling yourself up by the bootstraps. No, Robert Moses practiced discrimination. The Homeowners Loan Corporation practiced discrimination to ensure that whenever you pull yourself up by the bootstraps, they got a plan and agenda to shut it down. Home ownership is the fastest and most convenient way for Americans to create and generate generational wealth. Me being a mortgage professional for well over 14 years, I am very aware of that. I've done a number, I don't know how many loans where certain families and other communities are able, their father or grandfather will pull out of the equity in the home because he has that ownership because he wasn't in the hazard zone. He's able to pull out of the equity in the home and do what's called a gift of equity, where he can transfer that ownership as a down payment on his son or grandson's new home purchase. Well, the residents of Sugar Hill, they weren't given that opportunity because of the HOLC maps. So they didn't have the opportunity to give a gift of equity to their descendants. That's how you're able to build generational wealth. You see, you may not have $80,000 in the bank liquid, but if you have $80,000 in the value of your home, you could pull 30 of that and give it to your son or daughter, daughter-in-law, son-in-law as a gift of equity for a down payment on a new home purchase. Now you got multiple homeowners in there. Now imagine when that son, his children grow up and he's paid down enough on his mortgage where he's built in some equity. He can do the same for his son and his son and his son or daughter and so forth. Well, when you created the homeowner loan corporation maps, you snatched that opportunity away from blacks where they couldn't do that. You snatched it away from us. And in economic areas where they were grassroots, boots on the ground, building their own streetcars, building their own life insurance companies, building their own parks, building their own hospitals, building their own colleges, building their own commercial properties. You snatched it away. You snatched it away and said that where they're living at was hazardous. You see here, hazardous. You said this was hazardous. Actually, let me blow this up so all can see. So it was hazardous, all right? This is what you said. You see these areas where blacks were living? None of these folks got the opportunity to give a gift of equity to their child. They didn't get the opportunity to sell their home for twice or three times worth what they bought it for. They didn't get that opportunity. In fact, the appraisers and realtors and mortgage loan officers teamed up with the HOLC to ensure that at all costs they avoided doing any sort of mortgage lending, any sort of mortgage programs, any real estate transactions in any area deemed red because that's where the black people lived. Okay? So I want this to sink in. I want you to see this map. This is a redlining map. This is the racial discrimination map through mortgages and real estate. All right? You see National Housing Act of 1934. I didn't make this map. The Homeowners Loan Corporation made this map. All right? This is what they deemed hazardous. All right? They made sure anybody in this area did not get a chance at any economic relief for the refinance programs the FHA established. They made sure if you lived here, you didn't get any of that relief. In fact, they let the appraisers devalue the homes here. Told you could only buy the homes cash, and they were worth less than what they got it for. Imagine you have a mortgage of 300,000, and that wasn't the numbers in. I'll be more realistic to that time. Imagine you have a mortgage for 5,000 and somebody tells you your house can only sell for $900. Can't pass any ownership down to your child. You don't have any. While homes down here are just doubling in value, tripling in value. But if you live here where millionaires are living at, where they got the first library, they got their own hospital, they got streetcars taking you from this neighborhood to downtown, street rail cars. You can catch the you can catch the train and go downtown back in the 30s, back in the 20s. That's pulling itself up by your bootstraps. Don't you let anybody tell you that black folks didn't pull themselves up by the bootstraps. They did, and we still do, and we'll always and forever do it. All right. And that's why I'm bringing this to you all today. We're gonna go. We're not gonna take our foot off the gas as it pertains to redlining. Jacksonville, Florida, is a place that's very near and dear to my heart. I went to school there. So I'm going to bring awareness. I'm going to bring awareness here. Okay, we're going to bring awareness here because this has got to stop. All right, we're going to dispel these rumors, and we're going to dispel it right now, here and today. All right, and mortgage discrimination, as we talked about a couple of days ago about the Ameris Bank versus or USA versus Ameris Bank, that was in 2023. Redlining, the continuation of the continuation of the redlining maps established in 1933. They're still practicing the expansion, the maintaining, the expansion and refinement of redlining right now. So much so the attorney general had to take them to court in Jacksonville, Florida. They originated zero mortgages. They originated zero mortgages in those areas I just showed you on the map. They originated zero mortgages in these areas in 2023. They're still avoiding they're still avoiding doing business here. In 2023, they were avoiding doing business here. It was so flagrant that they had to be brought to justice by the United States of America. The case is USA versus Ameris Bank. Check out the video I did on it a couple days ago. And you'll see the breakdown of the court. I pulled out the court complaint and the paperwork where they requested a jury trial. And Ameris Bank had to settle on that. And we'll be putting that in a documentary too. Oh, it's going to be a whole lot of information going out as it pertains to real estate steering and mortgage discrimination, redlining, squeezing blacks out of wealth and generational wealth and income, out of real estate opportunities, out of commercial business opportunity. Oh, more will be coming. We're going to bring truth to power, and we're going to sow seeds of constructive outcomes here. All right. So I want this map to forever be imprinted in your head for all my folks in Jacksonville. And I'm going to show you city to city. Like I said, we're going to go neighborhood watching. I got my radar out. We going neighborhood watching. All right. But we starting with Jacksonville because Florida is the home of the Seminoles, the Riders, the Black Native Americans. So we going to start with the Seminoles first. That's right. We're going to go over to the Califians in California. But we starting with the Seminoles first. Oh, yeah. But I hope you all have found that this message was constructive and provided some constructive value and outcome to your day and your life. Please like, share, and subscribe with all your friends and loved ones, anyone, anybody, like I said, that tells you that blacks don't pull themselves up by the bootstraps. You show them this. You show them the Black Wall Street of Sugar Hill, Jacksonville, Florida, Duval County. I'm Seeds. I hope this has been constructive, and I'm out.